This is the Sourced Podcast, where cold mornings, screaming bull elk, and bent rods turn into legends told. Hosted by Nate Zielinski and brought to you by Jiffy Ice Fishing, we go beyond tags and trophies, into the grind, the heartbreak, and the moments that keep us coming back for more. If it bugles, if it bites, if it lives wild, it's Sourced. Lock in.
Welcome to the Source Podcast. I'm your host, Nate Zielinski. This podcast and every podcast proudly brought to you by Jiffy Ice Fishing. I tell you what, we just couldn't do it without Jiffy Ice Fishing. The revolutionary impact they've made in the last year, absolutely unbelievable. So thanks, Jiffy, for bringing us this podcast. Tell you what, today's episode, I love it. I love the aspect of today's episode simply for the fact that I'm bringing on a friend, and very rarely do I get to ask my friend all of these type questions because our friendship doesn't get in the way, but we just do the friendship life thing and not necessarily talking about the work thing. So I'm excited about it. So Natalie, how you doing today?
Doing awesome. How are you, Nate?
I am here. So, guys, Natalie is a Western-based fisheries biologist. Quite frankly, she is a big deal. So we're here to talk today about fish biology, talk about some of the things that I think everybody would love to know about fish, right? And we're going to kind of talk about, I'm going to ask you a pile of questions. I just want to hear from you on your role. What's the day-to-day type thing? And here's probably the big picture concept for everybody that's listening today is, we all go out, we fish, we love doing it, we all have complaints. I wish that they would do this, or this, and I don't think anybody truly understands how in-depth the job is of a biologist building a fishery, managing a fishery, making sure that it all works together, making sure that it all works legally and federally, that there is so much to it than what the average person does of like, I wish they would do this. It's like, that's not even a thing, right? So you have a lot of things that you do. First and foremost, like walk us through what your role is as far as like day to day. Is it stocking fish? Is it overdoing? Like what do you handle on a day to day basis?
So I have switched roles in the last few years. I'm a manager now. So I like to describe my role as I am in charge of everything and nothing all at the same time. So there's a huge group that works in our region, 12 full-time biologists. They're running in every different direction that you could imagine. So we've got a native fish component, a sport fish component, and we've got an AIS component, all branched underneath our office here. So you name it, in a week, I have probably seen it or will see it or have seen it. So yes, it is sometimes crazy. Sometimes it's mellow. There are a lot of fires that I have to put out that I try to put out before our biologists even know they occurred.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep them going. I'm trying to keep them going out on the landscape, doing great things, talking to our anglers, trying to, I guess, prepare mentally, physically, all the things for what we're about to encounter.
Yep.
All while tweaking stockings, making management decisions, and then fishing myself in the background because it does not fail. There's not a week that goes by where I don't get angler calls about any place in the entire region and sometimes the state.
Yeah.
So it can be very wild and it can be very mellow the next week. It just depends on the week.
I love it. So a little background with that, right? So I'm a guide, a tournament fisherman, a tournament host, event host, whatever you want to say, right? I work in the industry, and I have worked with Natalie on multiple things, but we started off our relationship as that. You were a biologist that basically had to sign off saying we could host some events and do some things, and then took it to the next level, and our friendship sparked from there because you are the first biologist, and nothing against all the other ones I work with, but you live it. Like, you are an angler, and that's what I probably love the most, is simply for the fact that through the course of all the things we've done, like, you are a fisherman, and I think that's so huge, because I work with so many biologists that they fish, and that's how they got into it, and they love it, but, like, I mean, you're on the water. We have fished together more than we have worked together, and I think that that's a big part of it, because, again, I think it brings it full circle. I know a lot of people that I work with in the industry, and I work with biologists and, 8, 10 states sometimes. And, there's a handful that like they focus on their job, and I don't want to say they lose the angling perspective, but if you're not out there doing it on a regular basis, you are so powerful because you have both sides of it, right? You're a hardcore angler and you work in it. And I just couldn't love that about you more. I think it's so cool that your passion for fishing is as strong as anything.
And I think it was how I was raised has brought this full circle now. So a little bit of background about, I was born and raised in a forest. My dad owned a logging company. So my entire childhood was spent in a forest, in nature, working my butt off. But also, like, after the day was done, we would go get our fishing poles and go somewhere. All summer long, summer after summer. And I think all of those experiences coupled with just kind of some of my college, I played college basketball. It's a weird mix, but it gives you a sense of like teamwork and accountability and hard work. Mix that and then add fishing into it and then add this big thing into it. It kind of just has all fallen into place. And I'm so blessed to be where I am today. I have a bit of a different background. My bachelor's degree is in actually kinesiology, and my master's degree is in fisheries management. Okay. So it is a weird combo pack, but you put it all together, and I hope that people can see how it works to benefit all the different moving parts and pieces of this thing.
I love it. And I think also, like, flat out, you're a rock star mom, right? Like, we talk about that all the time. Our kids are very similar in age. When we can try to get together, we do. And I think that's such a cool aspect because, again, what your childhood was that created this fire and this passion, you're passing right down to your girls and kind of continue the tradition. And I love it.
Well, we're trying to do the same thing here. You and your twins and me and my girls, and it is tough. Like, we live in a tough world where trying to get those electronics out of their hands is difficult. And I drag them everywhere I can with me, and I have since they were born. They were in backpacks fishing. We were hiking together since they were little, and hopefully later in life they can appreciate that. And we try to take their friends too. I mean, that's the fun part for me. Teaching new kids to fish or teaching kids to fish that have never caught a fish before is so fun to me. It's like something that just lights a fire in me, and I will continue to do that for the rest of my career, is trying to get kids out on the landscape and appreciate our natural resources, because there's not enough of that going on, if you ask me.
I agree 100%. No, I love it. So with that said, I also have to give a little kudos. You and I have never really talked about this, but you and I, we try to fish together every time we're around each other. We've traveled to fish with each other and so forth. But like, we used to have a little fun little tournament, a whole group of us, right? A promotion company, my team, your team, and we always get together before some ice fishing events, and we'll have a little fish off, things like that. And I will honestly say that you personally have changed a lot of my recent fishing success, because I've always been in my way, right? When we're going to target a certain thing, you and I have competed in small tournaments, and you kick my butt almost every time. And you always do, in my mind, weird stuff, right? Like, you catch the first fish, and I'm like, how did that happen so fast? And you're like, what do you mean? It was awesome. And you're like, I caught that one 4 foot below the ice. I'm like, we're in 20 foot of water. We should be in the lower half. And you're like, why do we have to be in the lower half? And I'm like, I don't know, because we're supposed to. And you've done so many off-the-wall things in my, old school head, and it's caught fish, and I feel like you've opened up my eyes to opportunities, and now I take them everywhere I go, and I catch a lot of fish. So just kudos to you for teaching me that. So I got to give a thanks as we kind of get into it. But I have a lot of stuff that I want to talk about, so I'd love to jump in and do it if you're open for it.
Yep, let's rock and roll.
All right, so in the perspective of fish biology, running a large team, all of this kind of stuff, I think every angler always has an input, right? They want this, they want that, they want to be able to keep this. And right, we all have requests as anglers to any of our fisheries in any of the states we're at. We always think that we know more, we should suggest things, but obviously there is a lot of things that go into it. In the recent years, you have had bodies of water that you have been able to somewhat start fresh with. with, right? Whether it's a new body of water or a body of water that got killed off or drained or whatever the concept is, you have started Fisheries. I would love to know in your brain what goes into developing a fishery. Like, what's the food, the predator-prey relationship? Like, you've had the opportunity that some biologists haven't of, like, starting fisheries. Walk me through what goes through your brain on that.
Yeah, so I think the first thing to recognize is, in the big scope of things, our anglers want the most fish, the biggest fish all the time, no matter what.
Yep.
I know from the very beginning, I cannot provide such a thing.
Yep.
But we do work with our anglers very closely, and a lot of the times we're doing what is called a management team or a management committee. So we're bringing in anglers from all different sides of the spectrum. And my job is to try to bring all their perspectives together with the biology that reservoir can handle, the physical parameters, the water chemistry, the forage base. And then a lot of the times in our particular region, everything that flows out of a reservoir has to be basically screened, or we can only stock certain species because down below that reservoir is endangered fish critical habitat.
Okay.
And it is a lot to mesh into one.
Oh, so absolutely.
The one reservoir I'll highlight, I won't actually call it out by name, but
yeah,
we reset it because there was an illegal introduction. 2 years before we actually did the treatment, we brought together a management team. And it's like I described. We had basically a year and a half worth of meetings with all these different interests.
Yep.
And they threw ideas at this board, and we captured them, and we put all these pieces of this puzzle back together. One thing we wanted is we had 2 reservoirs that were relatively close in distance. One is like our hometown fishery. It's got high catch rates for trout. It's got big bass, bluegill. The other reservoir, though, we wanted it more of a destination fishery, something unique. And one of my goals as reservoir biologist when I was in that role was to try to diversify species assemblage.
Okay.
Utah is known for growing trout and rainbow trout. 70% of our public still just wants rainbow trout.
Okay.
There's a lot more that's going on here to where others want a challenge. They want something new. They want a different species to target. So we went back.
And sometimes that group of anglers is very into it, right? They're on the more knowledgeable side. They're on the more conservation side. They live for it. They fish more, which is hard because you have a smaller group of anglers, but a way more developed group of anglers.
Right. And this group wants, we want a destination style fishery. So we went back in with a whole new species assemblage. But first off, and pretty much every scenario within our region of the state, we are forage limited systems. We never have enough forage for the predators that we want to maintain and sustain. So first off, we rebuilt with bluegill, yellow perch, black crappie. Black crappie's new to our entire region.
Okay.
And then we went over the top with wiper. We created some triploid walleye, and then we stocked some trout species, some tiger trout, and then cutthroat trout up in the stream up above. So we came back with a very diverse species assemblage. We added in reservoir habitat structures. It's not really super productive reservoir in itself, so we knew that some of these fish may not do as well as we want. The other component of this whole rebuild too was a native fish component. We have what's called a flannelmouth sucker that was native to this drainage and this reservoir, and we wanted them back in the system, so we put those back in as well. So very diverse. You kind of never know what you're
very diverse.
But that's the coolest thing about it, and it's located in just this gorgeous little canyon.
Yeah.
So the opportunity to start from scratch to try and rebuild that for our anglers was pretty amazing. There's largemouth bass in there too, which that's a whole different story because we had 2 reservoirs go down at once. One was because they were doing repairs on a dam and they had to drain it. The other one was something that we had to do, but we tried to salvage those fish and bring them over into the other fishery. So it's super complex. We're still watching it evolve. Some things have worked out. Some things have not. Like our wiper in that fishery are amazing, but our triploid walleye, they're struggling.
Walk everybody through what a triploid walleye is. I think a lot of our viewers are going to be like, what on earth is that?
Right. So a triploid walleye is basically a sterile fish species that does not reproduce.
Okay.
So we make those over at our Willard Bay facility, and the eggs are pressure treated to keep that third chromosome inside the egg.
Okay.
And when they come out on the other side, they're a sterile species, and without reproduction. So walleye are challenging. You love walleye. I love walleye. Managing walleye is a royal pain. I'll tell you that straight up. They get ahead of themselves a lot. They reproduce like crazy, and they eat any and everything anything they want.
Yep.
So you have to be pretty cautious about what you're doing with walleye. And triploid walleye is special here because, again, every drop of water that comes out of this dam enters critical habitat in endangered fish country, and we have to protect for that. So if one were to escape through our fish screen, they would get in the reservoir, but they could not, or the river, but they couldn't reproduce.
Yep.
So that's the general idea behind triploid in this sense.
Is there a perk of a triploid? Do they grow bigger, faster, slower? Any concepts behind that? Just I think it's interesting to talk about.
Yeah, so some species they do. Our triploid walleye, I'm not going to lie, they're not doing well.
Yeah.
And we've seen some success, but for the most part, they just don't survive. The wiper the wiper decimate them. Yep. So the wiper are a triploid as well. They're a cross.
And they're just a big bully.
Oh man, they're a pack of wolves. That's how we describe them. They are a
pack of wolves.
They're a pack of wolves. They hunt together, they school together, and they eat anything and everything. Yep. And you have to be careful with them as well, but they're a little bit easier to control.
So walk everybody through what a wiper is. Because this is one of those things this is probably the biggest concept. Almost all species are known across the country. We really have listeners on the East Coast, West Coast, and everything in between. We have a ton of Canadian following on this podcast, so everybody's around. A wiper is probably the one species of all the species that people do not understand because they haven't heard of them, right? So you say wiper, and people are like, what on earth is that? Now, some places, you go to little parts of Oklahoma, and they'll just call them a hybrid, and then people might know the hybrid form, but walk everybody through what is a wiper.
A wiper is a cross between a white bass and a striped bass.
Okay.
So there's two different crosses you can get from that. One's called a palmetto bass, I believe, and the other is called a sunshine bass.
Okay.
So, and it depends on the year with which cross we make. Like our broodstock depends on which cross we get that year.
No kidding, I didn't know that.
Sometimes we get them from out of state too, so yeah, we don't really, sometimes I don't even know which cross we're getting that year. But
and they're a badass fish. I mean, they are strong. They can swim faster than any species. I think literally scientifically, I think a wiper can open its mouth at the fastest speed of any freshwater fish. There's some pretty crazy stats of fish geeks that talk about the capabilities of a wiper. I mean, they're wicked. They are a crazy, crazy fish.
They are wicked, and one thing I had to learn from scratch, just like everyone else, because they were brand new to our region.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm kind of nutso when it comes to fishing. I don't know if you know that, but I really love to fly fish from my paddleboard.
Okay.
And trying to target wiper like that, I had them pulling me around. I had them breaking my 10-pound tippet. I had to totally readjust what I was doing to try to capitalize on getting one of those all the way up to the side of my paddleboard.
Oh, absolutely.
I compare a wiper to a peacock bass.
Yep.
I fished for both, and we should probably talk about Florida fishing at some time.
Yeah.
Awesome. But yeah, those two species are pretty close on the fly. To their capabilities, the quickness that they turn and go a different direction, they're pretty awesome. So
I mean, they're crazy.
Yeah,
they're really crazy. Cool. No, I love it. So yeah, you talk about that fish that thrive and fish that don't thrive. So you kind of mentioned it, but one of the questions I wanted to ask is, what's the toughest species from a biology standpoint to grow? Is walleye the hardest? What species, as a biologist, is the hardest to establish in a fishery and continue to manage as a biologist?
That's an interesting question, because I think a lot of the things we can grow in a hatchery, and I get them at a certain size.
Yep.
The hardest to manage by far is a walleye.
Okay.
But I think the hardest to grow and get going are some of our forage species. Like
that's what I was going to say.
Yellow perch were really difficult to get going because they need all these different things. They need structures, they need good zooplankton, they need midges, then they transition to a fish. So just getting our forage bases up and going has been challenging because our reservoirs are so not like
unique.
A normal Midwestern I don't even call them reservoirs out there. They're actually lakes.
Yeah.
These are man-made irrigation lakes that are drawn from 100% down to sometimes 4% capacity every year. And we're trying to manage diverse fisheries in these puddles at the end of the year. And it's wild what can sustain in a 4% capacity of a reservoir. But our forage bases, they take a beating every single year.
It's a disaster. My favorite walleye fishery right now, right, my home water, we're gonna face probably one of the worst bait fish populations. Right, we thrive on shad. Shad is our thing. Last year, our shad are gonna go into the spawn, in May, right? Depending on the year, it could be early May, it could be later May, but in that main time period, and it can be a 20-something day window that we see our shad spawn, but almost always our shad spawn, and it just timing-wise is almost always when we get a call for water and the reservoir gets pulled down. So last year, we had a call for water right after the shad spawn and literally left all the eggs dry, right? Every spawn site for shad was dry ground by the time the eggs hatched. So we literally had like of 5% of our shad base actually survived last year. Luckily, in that body of water, we had yellow perch, a very, very robust yellow perch population. So we had a population of forage that the walleye could eat, that the smallmouth could eat, that the trout could eat. So it saved the fishery. Unfortunately, they depleted almost all of our yellow perch, which is heartening because I love catching yellow perch. I wanted to see those thrive. And the walleye almost always take a shad over a yellow perch. If you have both of them, they always beat up on the shad. They leave the yellow perch, and it's great. So right now, our fish are skinny. They've depleted the food. And literally right now, this second, as we do this podcast, we are in a draw as we speak. I can't say yet until I see where the draw goes. But I mean, right now, our shad are like, our eggs probably have 10 inches of water left for their survival. And I would just have to assume in the extreme drought we're in, we're probably going to draw down past that, and we're probably not going to have a shad hatch, and our fish aren't going to have food. So it's crazy, and it's so fun because Western anglers are used to these elevation changes. You go to the Midwest, and I talk to buddies, and they're like, oh man, the water's down. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, it looks a little low. They're like, we're 10 inches low. And they like freak out. I'm like, I've had 10 inches drop while I fished in a day, where I literally watch my graph change depth as they lower it. And it's just one of these Western things that a lot of anglers don't know. And I can't imagine having to deal with your job. It's hard enough to be a fishing guide, let alone have to manage during these crazy swings of water level change. It's just crazy.
It is crazy. And this will probably prove to be one of the craziest years yet. Like, I've been in this business now almost 20 years, and I've never seen anything like what we are entering right now. As far as reservoir levels coming into this spring, I mean, we're having to adjust stockings constantly. Even our high elevation lakes are sitting at like 30% capacity right now. Oh, yeah. And that is not good.
No.
So we're
hatcheries, everything is in jeopardy.
Yeah, it is. It's wild. I mean, I think we've prepared our biologists to deal with this the best they can, but we are every day on the fly trying to make adjustments. So we get to the end of the summer and we know that we have 4% capacity in this reservoir, or we're going to lose this reservoir. We open up some emergency fishing regulation changes so those anglers can go in and harvest those fish and utilize them. One of the things I hate the most is to see fish die.
Yep.
And it is tough. Like, as an angler and as a biologist, you never want to have that happen, but it is part of the world that we live in, and we're just trying to keep our heads above what water is left right now, honestly.
I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
We're going to have to see how this all plays out, but there could be some significant rebuilding of fisheries in maybe the entire Western United States.
That's it. The entire West is going to have to do it. And I mean, same type thing. As we see closures in my area, everybody's like, oh, move the fish. And it's like, where are you going to move them? Some of these other fisheries are at 30, 40%. They can't handle a boost in population. They don't have the food to sustain that. I mean, it's one of these things that it's heartbreaking, because all of a sudden you have a boost in population of fish that you could stock and move, and you have nowhere to put them. So it's just one of those years that, it's going to be a downfall in some ways, and you just got to wait and see what happens and do some major rebuilding after this. So, all right, enough of the negative talk. I want to get back talking about fish. So, we talk about, a fish that's maybe harder to deal with, and bait fish is your key there. What is you, as a biologist, maybe even as an angler, what is your favorite fish species? Every time I mention tiger muskie, I feel like you get pretty excited. But what's your take on everything?
I mean, I do love fish. A tiger muskie is awesome. But my favorite fish to fish for, I have two. So warm water, we got to go warm water and cold water.
Okay.
I love to go up into the high country and I target tiger trout.
Okay.
They are the most phenomenally colored.
So same thing. I would say nowhere else in the country does anybody even know what a tiger trout is. So walk us through what makes up a tiger trout.
Yeah, you're probably right. So a tiger trout is a cross between a brown trout and a brook trout. And I don't know if you can see this thing behind me on the wall. That's a tiger trout, and its colors are just vibrant. It's bold. The patterns on the top. They're wicked for feistiness.
I mean, you take like a mean fish and another mean fish, and it makes a meaner fish. I mean, it is like violent fish.
It's violent sometimes, and to catch them on a fly rod, or I use a spinning rod sometimes. Yep. That's one thing I wanted to mention too. I always get crap from some of my friends who are like hardcore fly fishermen or hardcore not fly fishermen. Like, why do you always bring two rods? Because the techniques are going to be different each day.
100%. I am all about it with you.
I don't want to be left out. If there's not a hatch happening on the top, or there's not minnows swimming around, I mean, I'm going to switch to a jig. So I have both setups all the time. But tiger trout is such a fun species to target, and the vibrant colors you can get from those crosses are amazing.
I agree.
That's my favorite for trout species. And then, warm water, I do like wiper. I like wiper a lot. They're my favorite. Walleye are challenging. I love the challenge of a walleye, but they don't fight very good. Come on.
You can't make fun of them. I will never say they don't fight good. I love them for who they are. I'm never going to make fun of them. They're like a family member to me. But I understand what you're talking about. It's funny because I used to guide a lot of wiper trips, and I stopped guiding wiper. And we get so many calls, and I'm like, I want nothing to do with it. And everybody's like, why is your bad attitude about wiper? And I love the aggressive. I love the fight. Everything about them's awesome. I hate the fact that they are a suspending fish that literally does what they want when they want. As a guide, you could catch a wiper every day for a week, and you're like, I'm feeling pretty good. And the next day, go out and not even find a school. I'm not saying not catch one. Like, you won't even find one to cast to because they're so random. The random concepts of wiper, I just hate them for it. They are a fish that literally sometimes will go weeks on end without repeating a pattern. And it can be a disaster if you don't have enough of them in a fishery.
I love your perspective, because that's why I love a wiper so much, is because they challenge me. I mean, they challenge you too, obviously, but yeah, a wiper through the ice, though, still is my biggest challenge. They're so damn hard to catch through the ice. A lot of things change.
Because it's just random. It's just like, I'm going to swim over here today. Nope, I don't like that. I'm going to swim over here this day.
Yeah, but I think too, over. I mean, I have a love for bluegill too, because here's the biggest reason. I can take kids, I can take newbies, I can take anyone out on my boat, and I can put them on a pot of bluegill, a school of bluegill, and they will have a ball. I mean, my girls and I go out in the evenings and we fish from 6 till 9:30 at night in the summer nights.
Yeah.
And they have contests like, Mom, I'm tired. I reached 150 bluegill tonight. Can we go now? There is nothing better than big feisty bluegill, especially for kids. It is what keeps them coming back.
I agree. That's probably in my fishery. I grew up doing it, and more the fisheries that I have around me, we're lacking that. We just don't have the bluegill opportunity that even I had as a kid, let alone what a lot of people have all over the country, right? As a Western angler, bluegill is a hot commodity. We just don't have a lot of them. And some regions are very much like, it's like my kids, I'm not sure if they've ever even caught one. You know what I mean? Maybe a couple here and there, but it's just not that opportunity, and I miss it because I agree. I think that as a detrimental point of young anglers fishing, and I can't tell you, you get a 10-inch bluegill, every adult in the world loves it, right? It's a very cool fish to catch and target for sure.
Yeah, so those are my favorites. I mean, we can jump into the Florida fish species. There's so many down there that are all my favorites.
Right.
The tarpon will always be my favorite. An 8-foot-long tarpon is my favorite. But yeah, I mean, there's so many different. The coolest thing about, I think, being a fish biologist and having this as my hobby is it can take you anywhere and everywhere all over this planet.
Oh,
now,
yeah.
I hate to fly, so that is a detriment to me because I need to go fly to Iceland and I need to go fly to New Zealand and all those places. But yeah, I still have so much to explore here, just my little area, the entire region. And I haven't been to every drainage in my region or every lake on the U.S. So, yeah, there's a lot to explore and a lot to do, but it's such a sweet sport to take you all over the world.
I agree 100%. All right, so talking fish species, especially on the biology side, obviously we have listeners all over the country, but speaking of home, right, Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, kind of my region right here, within that, as a biologist, I want to talk trout for a split second, right? Rainbow trout, cutthroat trout, right? How many varieties of a rainbow are there? I mean, there's times where I look at a stocking sheet, and I don't think you even deal with it quite as much as I'm dealing with it in Colorado, but I mean, there are times where I'll look through a sheet and I'm like, what are all these names? Like, oh, those are all rainbows. I'm like, how are there 20 different styles of rainbows or whatever the case may be? Like, walk me through that. The species of a trout, we'll call it. Like, what's the deal with that? Like, how many are there? How does that work?
Man, I can't even give you a number of all that exist out there on the landscape.
I mean, it's crazy.
Basically, they're strains is how we title them. So we have many different strains of rainbows. In Utah, a big thing that we have to deal with is disease in our hatchery.
Okay.
Cold water disease is a huge detriment right now. So we have strains of rainbow in our hatchery right now that are what are called cold water resistant strains.
Okay.
And right now, the big one is a West Virginia strain. So West Virginia crossed with a fish like DeSmet or a Ho-Ha. You get all these different crosses
Love it.
you can produce.
Yep.
On the landscape, visually, you can't really tell the difference between some of them. I mean, there are some that are definitely different. A Kamloops rainbow is seemingly way different than some of these West Virginia strains.
Yeah.
But that's why we have the different strains in our hatcheries right now. And that's why we're producing what we are, because we are constantly battling diseases that pop up in our hatcheries. And the big one right now is cold water disease. So, I mean, in our state, we've had 20 different strains over the last 10 years.
I mean, that's what it seems like. And I mean, it's crazy because some are for growth. Hey, we need to get them to size quicker. So we want to breed in XYZ strain to get them to grow fast to where they're not as vulnerable to pelicans or not as vulnerable to pike or whatever the case. Or, hey, yeah, exactly. This one here is going to be in a fishery with gill lice. We got to make sure that they're hardier and they can withstand, XYZ. Or this one here, needs this quality. But it's crazy how many strains. And it's more intriguing to me because as a guide, I'll be like, oh, look at this one, look at this one, and they're like, why are they different? I'm like, oh, that's a strain different. I'm like, I can't keep up with it. And people are like blown away. They're like, what do you mean? There's a different version of a trout? I'm like, there's 20, 30 of them, in the state that are variations of different strains, and people have no idea, and it's crazy. And some fight harder, some look different. I mean, it's drastic how much they will change, on that. And yeah, it's nuts how a rainbow for the lack of better terms, I mean, there are a lot of options in that category.
And there will continue to be. I mean, even looking out into our future, our research team is already starting to look at, which ones should be next, because
Okay.
we can only treat in the hatchery. You can only treat so many times before something becomes antibiotic resistant, basically.
Yep.
Just the same type thing as what humans deal with.
That's it.
But you can only have these strains circulating for so long. And like you said earlier, it's a matter too of when these rainbows spawn.
Yep.
So spring spawn, fall spawn, they'll create a 10-inch fish after a year here, or a 3-inch fish there. So we also stock with different sizes.
Yep.
I mean, there's sub-catchables and catchables, and then there's super catchables. So they're all just...
I don't know if I've even heard that, Shane. Okay, what's a super catchable? 14, 15?
It's a 12-inch rainbow. But yeah, it's something that Idaho Fish and Game used for a long time,
Yep.
and we've kind of replicated it in some areas. So the stocking benefit of super catchables in most places is basically you're producing something an angler can catch and return to creel, but you're also reducing the number of mouths. So if you have a forage limited system, and some of those trout, they do start eating other fish. Yeah, they're not scared to eat yellow perch.
Yep.
So you've got this balance where you're trying to keep, warm water fisheries, cool water fisheries, all on top of a dwindling forage. So you need less mouths in the system. That gets you a catchable product that's mostly appealing to the anglers, and less mouths overall in the system.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's quite the spectrum of strains. And then when you switch to cutthroat strains, we have 4 different strains of cutthroat within our state of Utah. And then within those, even within our region, we have a north slope strain, a south slope, and north cavapits. So it's like, and we manage these brood facilities where we're going out, and it's cutthroat spawning season right now. So some of our spawns will start tomorrow.
Okay.
Those are for the one strain of cutthroat trout. And then other hatcheries are doing spawning operations simultaneously and stocking.
Okay.
It's wild, man. I don't, like you said before, I don't think people even fathom what goes on.
I mean, that's just it, I get behind the scenes, honestly, more than I would like to. I work with various DNR agencies, from consulting to this and that, and it's crazy how they would have no idea. You know what I mean? And that's just the biggest concept, especially like this. I mean, and developing, and more so trying to predict the future, right? Like, what is the next thing, and what's going to be, I guess, the cross between what the anglers want and what's good for the fishery. And that's just where it just blows my mind at how many different options there are and varieties they are. And particularly for me, you see one fishery that gets one, and the fishery 2 miles away that gets another strain. And, I'm like, man, I like this fishery better, but boy, I sure like that strain of trout better. I'd rather go there. I mean, some of them are easier to catch. Some of them fight more. Some of them are bigger. I mean, there's little concepts of all of it. But yeah, it blows my mind on the biology side how that's out there and how the general public doesn't see it.
And we're trying to manage for that diversity. I mean, we have fisheries that are opportunistic fisheries, we have trophy fisheries, and the spectrum of everything in between. So on the landscape, we're trying to provide as many opportunities for the diverse angling public that we have. And it is a juggling act, and sometimes it just does not fit, and you have to adjust. And everything that is happening right now in our world is kind of, I don't know if it's scary, daunting, but it's a challenge to me to try to make something good happen because it may be bad, if that makes sense. Like, for example, some of our cool water fisheries that have always been cooler cold water fisheries are now too warm to sustain trout.
Okay.
So we're going in when we're trying to rebuild with like channel catfish in a reservoir. And we've got a carp problem there where there's just so many, like we got to get them gone. So we're adding wiper. We've got some largemouth bass in there, but that used to be like a trophy brown trout fishery.
Okay.
And we can't sustain a trout now from year to year anymore.
Yep.
So
that's crazy.
The challenges that we're seeing on the landscape now are pretty intimidating. But we have a really good crew of smart humans that have been trained on how to do this. And
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident that as a team, we can figure out some solutions to these challenges that are knocking right on our door right now.
I love that you're at that level of quickly developing the concepts for that. Because again, I think a lot of DNR agencies have a hard time making the quick changes to keep up with that. Instead of letting a fishery totally go to the wayside and then trying to bring it back, like making those adapts, like, hey, we're going to lose this. Let's immediately introduce this. So by the time it truly is a problem, we have a sustainable fishery of XYZ. So I think that's cool. One thing you said there that I want to pick your brain on, again, we didn't rehearse any or talking about any of this, but carp and wiper. What does the wiper do for the carp? How does that work? Will the wiper beat up the carp?
We're trying to get the wiper to crop off small carp before they get too big to eat.
Will they do that?
Do what?
Will they do that?
They will do that. So in certain instances, they'll school up, how we talked about earlier.
Yep.
And they'll become ambush predators. So when the carp are kind of in those shallow backwaters spawning and there's eggs and fry,
yeah,
this wiper can do a pretty good job at coming in and
no kidding. Okay.
Keep those carp at bay. The bass, the largemouth can do the same thing.
Okay.
Controlling a carp population is difficult once they get established somewhere.
Yep.
Really, there's only two fisheries in our region where there's carp already established that haven't completely taken over and decimated and ruined a fishery. So
yep.
There's challenges to those fish too, and that's our own people in the 1890s brought them in as a food source. And there's just like, wow, we're still dealing with that. And we're not even talking about like the silver carp or anything.
Yeah.
None of that.
You're just talking carp. Yep.
Yeah. So I can imagine. I hope we never get silver carp out here in the West. But
right.
You never know.
No, that's it. So I was actually talking to a biologist the other day about this exact thing because in my career, I have never seen a species eat a carp, right? So they have a common carp, right? They have their vertical, dorsal fin or whatever you want to call it. But on the very front of that dorsal fin, it's like a bone. It's a totally different dynamic than most species. And that bone actually goes right down into like their spine. So how a carp like develops their back is different than a lot of other species. And because of that, a lot of predator species leave them alone. I mean, we have one fishery in Colorado that has a tremendous northern pike population. And the carp will push those pike around. You'll have a 40-inch pike that will not let a 12-inch carp near them, and they'll simply give up a bay and let the carp come in. They'll never hold their ground because the carp just push them around like a bully. And I have yet to ever see a pike eat a carp. So then I dug into the biology and we pulled up every sample and survey that there's ever been on stomach contents of these pike, and at no point have they ever had a carp. So like I started digging and going all dorky and looking at things, and at no point can I find any research of our Colorado fisheries where we see any species really eat carp. And it's one of those deals that I'm like, man, why is that? So it's exciting to know that wiper at least can do that. But our fisheries, I think it's because we have such an abundance of other food source. They always go for the alternative food source that might be easier to digest or easier to catch or higher protein, oil base. But either way, it's crazy how the carp, call it a trash fish. I love it. I call them a sport fish. But like, they're a hierarchy, right? They're a survivor. Nothing eats them. Like, they are a dominant species.
They're going to be here. If the apocalypse happens, they're going to be here.
100%.
Yeah, for sure. But, I mean, I've seen hundreds of thousands of diets now, fish diets over my career. Okay. It's not super common, but small carp will get eaten.
But you've seen it. That's all I care about. You have seen it. You're saying there's a chance. That's all I care about.
I've not seen it in our tiger muskie, but one thing that is kind of funny about our tiger muskie diets is in some of our fisheries, they will engulf black bullhead catfish. And
really? The tigers will eat the catfish?
Oh, yeah. Loads of them. There'll be 3 of them in a diet sometimes. Even with
those
spiny fish, those fins coming out the side, they still will gorge themselves on them at the right time. they'll be loaded with them. So
I've never heard that either. That's crazy.
I'm pretty amazed sometimes at what I find in diets. It's pretty interesting. So
walk us through that. That's great. That's not a question of mine, but let's talk about that. What else is in, like, how much does a fish eat? Let's just say a 40-inch tiger muskie. How often does that fish eat at springtime, 60-degree water? Like, whatever. I know that it changes through the year. Walk us through the digestion of like a tiger muskie, a walleye, and a rainbow. Give us some stats.
Holy moly. I don't know if I can actually provide.
Well, you could give us rough ideas.
So, I mean, springtime tiger muskie kind of strap on the feed bags. You'll see them have a big meal and then they'll come up and gulp on the surface for a while. I think from everything I know, that's kind of helping them digest that big meal.
Yep.
So I don't know exactly how often they eat. When I'm talking about stomach contents, I mean, I go in and we sample like an annual sampling event. So we'll go in one time a year and we'll get diet content from that one event. If we're doing like a hardcore, it's called a bioenergetics model. That is diets across an entire year's time frame.
Okay.
And we've done one of those on our walleye population. Okay. So I'm trying to remember all the stats. Our walleye in this particular fishery, they eat more midges and zooplankton than you could ever imagine.
I believe that.
But that's also because our forage base is not super healthy.
Yeah.
So they've switched over to eating those constantly, and as a result, it impacts their growth. So we've had this kind of stunted, it's really, they hit this wall about 3 or 4 years old where they can't switch over to fish, or there's not enough. And they stop growing and they hit this 14-inch stunting threshold. So, but those fish still eat, like they eat all the time. When they get past that, so we've done some stockings where we do some fall 10-inch rainbow stockings. Big walleye in the fall, they are loading up, trying to prepare themselves for winter. So I've pulled an 18-inch rainbow trout out of a 24-inch walleye before. I've pulled probably another 24-inch walleye, 3 or 4 of those 10-inch rainbows at one time. So they will strap on the feed bags, but it all just depends on what's available, what time of year it is, because they're not doing that in the spring. The walleye are staging to spawn. They'll eat before and they'll eat after, but not during the spawn. So they're all different, but I mean, I've seen diets from everything, even our trophy lake trout up on Flaming Gorge. They'll have kokanee rainbows, but they'll also have zooplankton loaded with midges. Sometimes there's like a 20-pound laker that just is chock full of big midges.
It's crazy.
Oh, guess you were keying in on that today. But
I mean, that's just high protein, easy to catch, you know?
And it's just a snapshot. It's one day in the life of this fish. So to truly understand what they're eating, you need a bioenergetics model, or you need, and I'm going to forget the name of it right now, but there's a study, an isotopic analysis study, where you can take a muscle plug from that fish and they can actually take it into the lab and they can come back with signatures from what that fish's main diet item.
That's freaking cool. That's cool.
It's wild. It's probably really expensive to run those, but when you have the research capabilities or university running a study, like they can pull some of those isotopic analysis, and it's pretty awesome.
That's wicked. I love that. I love it. That's cool. I love it. All things fish. All right. Last thing I want to talk about on the front of invasive species and issues with that, right? We talked disease, right? Like, I think the average person, the Western angler, put it that way, the Western angler, everybody knew about whirling disease, right? Everybody heard that phrase. They knew about it. But, like, I would say on the day-to-day, the smaller stuff, nobody knows anything, right? They don't follow any disease. They don't understand what's happening, gill lice. They don't really follow any of that stuff. Where are we at, right? We have boating issues, invasive species, right? We're worried about, snails, and we're worried about, whatever, all the stuff. But walk us through what, at least the Western fisheries, because that's where we're talking mostly. What are the Western fisheries looking at right now as far as any concerns in the future, from the zebra mussels and the snails all the way up to fish issues? Like, are we pretty healthy? Do we have any concerns coming up?
So, Utah has a very robust fish health program that tries to keep, so anything we bring in has to be disease-free certified. Any kind of fish species we bring in from out of state, In the meantime, inside we have a whole AIS program that basically is watching and keeping an eye out, and then on the other side of that, interdicting. So I still think, and I started in the AIS program almost 20 years ago now.
Okay.
We're trying, in Utah, we're still trying to keep quagga zebra mussels at bay. But another one that's just popped up coming from California is a golden mussel. Apparently,
I have not heard of this.
Yeah. So
okay.
This is almost, well, they say it's a little worse than a quagga or a zebra mussel.
Okay.
Because it's heat and cool tolerances and water quality tolerances are better, I guess.
Okay.
So that's one that we're watching out for. We still have things like New Zealand mud snail. We still have whirling disease impacts.
Yeah.
I think there's some crazy like fish diseases, VHS, which is viral hemorrhagic septicemia.
So I've seen VHS a lot on Lake Erie. So back in my tournament days, that was the first thing that affected my tournament career, because we used to be able to go to multiple waters. Like if you're fishing Lake Erie, we used to be able to fish Canada, fish Ohio, fish Michigan. We used to be able to hit all the bodies of water. And once VHS came around, we weren't allowed to cross state lines. So if you launched your boat in Ohio, you had to stay in Ohio waters. If you launched your boat on the Detroit River, you had to stay in Michigan waters. So VHS was probably the biggest impact of my career, more than even whirling disease. So I wasn't even familiar if that was still around. So it's interesting to see that you have said that.
Yeah, it's still around. I think our fish health board tries to keep a close eye on that one. And then there's BKD, bacterial kidney disease. So there's a couple different ones, and I'm not a virologist and I am not research. So this is not my big time topic.
Yeah.
But we're dealing with all of those things the best we can. The biggest thing right now is lack of water and heat. And one thing that I don't think is considered invasive by any means, but you're familiar with HABs, harmful algae blooms.
Okay.
Those are starting to cause a lot of problems throughout the West, not only for fish, but for humans, animals, everything else with them too. So those things are something that we don't even have a tool to fight them with yet. So that is probably...
In years like this, if we continue to have very minimal moisture and low water, it is the perfect conditions for those type situations.
Right. And even just in our region, I've seen reservoirs at all elevations that all of a sudden sprung up these HABs that have never had them before.
Yeah.
And so that is, to me, that's pretty scary and challenging, because there's really no good solution for those. And once they happen, you just kind of have to wait for them to do their thing and play the course, and then hopefully they're gone. But harmful blue-green algae blooms, they can be very toxic.
That's crazy. All the things that make up your job that the general public, I would say, would never think about. When we complain that we want to keep a fish and the slot limit's 1 inch short, that's our big priority, when really behind the scenes, you guys have a lot going on. And this is happening in every state, right? Obviously, we're fairly diverse with species and water with our reservoirs in the West, but literally every state is going to have some form of everything that we're talking about to deal with, to make up what is fishing across the United States of America. So a lot of crazy things coming there. Last question for you. What is next for you in life as a biologist? You want to get back in the field more? You like the management side, or what's next?
I just got to keep this happy medium going. So I try to be in the office a couple days a week and then out in the field a couple days a week. And that seems right now to give me a good handle on both things. I feel like I have to be out there talking to our anglers. I have to be out there interacting with them, trying to work with our different crews. So I try to bounce back and forth between all of our different crews, so I understand what they're dealing with and how I can provide resources to help them. So I like what I'm doing right now. I don't see any change happening. Wherever possible, I try to inject getting youth out fishing. We've done it with you, and you were a sponsor for us, but we tried to do a youth ice fishing tournament. Unfortunately, our ice the last couple of years is just not good.
Little rough.
We actually just hosted a youth fishing event at Steinecker a couple of weeks ago. Had 63 kids out there. It was awesome.
That's awesome.
Wherever I get the opportunity to inject those type of events to where we're getting kids out on the landscape, that is my goal. If I can build another community fishing pond, that would be another goal of mine. Those things are incredible for keeping kids going. It's a place where you heavily stock. It's easy fishing. You can provide guidance at any minute of the day, pretty much. So those are pretty cool things that I'll keep on my radar and high priority to try to get as many on the landscape and as many events as we can do possible. That's what I'm going to focus on.
I love it. I appreciate it. I tell you what, from the entire angling community to you and everybody on your team and all the biologists across the country, thank you. Again, it's one of those things that you keep it all running, you do it all, and I think very, very seldomly do you get the feedback from the anglers that you deserve to say thank you, because again, you keep it all going, and I feel like you get negative feedback and not the thanks that you deserve. So thank you so much for all that you do, and thanks for coming on to the podcast and explaining all that to everybody.
Yeah, no problem. And ditto back to you. Thank you. You guys who do these tournament angler events and try to help us in our management committees, you guys are valuable. And we appreciate all the interactions that we get to have with you guys. And there is a lot of negativity. There's a lot of negative feedback. And I think for the most part, people just don't understand the background behind it. If I have 5 minutes to educate someone on why this is the way this is, we'll come out on top and we'll have a consensus and they'll understand. But it's difficult. We have, I don't know how many anglers we have in the state of Utah. Do you know how many anglers you have in the state of Colorado?
I'd have to look. I mean, I have a rough idea, but yeah, it's crazy. And yeah, you're never going to have the conversations. You're not going to touch 1% of the conversations that you need to have with that many anglers.
Right. So whenever you see us out on the landscape, come talk to us. Let's talk about hard things too. That's the fun part about this job, right? Is having a challenge, when you don't see eye to eye.
Yep.
Once you have these conversations and you educate on both sides, you can start to be able to see eye to eye and come to consensus, and it's such a good thing. So keep it up, Nate. You're doing great things out there too.
You as well. I appreciate it. We'll probably see you in Florida soon. Go catch some fish, and then I'll probably see you at some big events coming up this fall. So I appreciate you.
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right, guys. Again, I'm Nate Zielinski. That was Natalie speaking on behalf of literally what I would say all fish biologists across this country. It is unbelievable. No matter where you are at in the country, out of the country, biologists have the biggest role in maintaining our fisheries for all that we do. And I can promise you, they all have a harder job than you think they do. So a huge thanks to them. And again, today was just a small insight of what goes on, what they deal with, what they do on a daily basis to make sure that you are able to get out there, target, and hopefully catch some fish. So again, awesome episode. Hopefully you enjoyed it. This episode and every episode, as we always say, is officially brought to you by Jiffy Ice Fishing. Again, we cannot say enough about Jiffy for doing all that they do. Ice fishing brand, but obviously we talk fishing all year long here on the Source Podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed this one, and we'll see you on the next one. Again, I'm Nate Zielinski. This is the Source Podcast, brought to you by Jiffy Ice Fishing.